Hi everyone, Tyler here from TW-Waytek. Today we're going to be talking about how to get JSON cloud data using an HTTP request in Power Automate. So let's get started. There are two caveats with this flow. First, I'll be using a premium flow that's part of the Power Automate per user plan. For testing purposes, there is a trial offering to use free for 90 days, and I'll leave a link in the description. Second, you will need to have installed and set up a data gateway for Power Automate. I'll leave a link in the description and at the end of this video on how to go about setting it up. So first we're going to want to start by setting up a scheduled cloud flow. So what you do is you're going to go up to New Flow, and you're going to select Scheduled Cloud Flow. So you want to give it a name, when you want it to start, and the time you want it to start, and then how often it repeats. But don't spend too much time here because we can go ahead and edit all this once we get into the flow. First is the recurrence flow. I have this running for this example on a weekly frequency, 5 days a week, every day at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is just not long after the stock market closes. So next, we're going to select an HTTP request. So if we were to select it in the connectors, HTTP, and you can see here it's premium. We just want the standard HTTP request. And we're going to go to method and select get, and then the URL that we're going to be pulling the data from. And for this flow, I'm using servers called IEX Cloud, which is where you can pull stock market information, both live and test data, and it's free, or there's a free version of it, and it's pretty nice. There's a lot of different data that you can pull. So in this service, you're given a token, and that token allows you to access live data as well as test data. And so you're giving the link for the specific service that you want to pull data from. And so this is what it would look like. So this would have been, as of Friday, the last trading day for Microsoft. And this is each second of the day. Here we're pulling each second of the trading day, so we're pulling the stock price, what it opened at, what it closed at, the volume traded, number of trades, etc. And that's what we're going to pull. So this is the only setup we need for the HTTP request. So let's go on to the next one. So here we're going to parse the data. Same thing, come here, parse the JSON operation. And we're going to want to pull for the content, the body of the HTTP request. And before we can see the schema, we would essentially copy a sample of the data set. So you can just take 1 minute, which will have all the columns that we would need to create the table and develop the schema. You could essentially just highlight this, copy it in, paste it, and this will develop the schema that you need to populate and also set up your table in SQL Server. We can take a look at what that would look like. So this is the JSON array. Each of these objects here is column that would be in your SQL Server table, and then the type of field it is. So it could be number, a string, an integer, and then so these are all the fields that would be required, and that's what we would need in order to create our SQL Server table where the JSON is going to be populated. So that's how it structures the data so that SQL Server can read it. And then for each second of the trading day, we're going to take that parsed data, which will be the body from the JSON, and then insert it into a row in SQL Server. So here's a screenshot of the SQL to create the table. So for each of the field names, you would create the type based on what we've pulled from the JSON schema. So each one of the data types should match. And if it doesn't, you're going to get an error when it tries to run. So here is an example of an error message when trying to run the flow. So you can see here it'll tell you that it's an invalid type, expected a number, but got null. So the issue is the type. So you have to, that's where the matching is extremely important. So for each record in the JSON file, we're going to want to insert it into the table that we created. So you're going to want to select your service name or enter your service name. We're going to want to add our SQL Server, the name of our database, and then the name of the table within the SQL Server. So once you create or add the table, you will see the different fields that are there in the table. And now we have to reference each item in the JSON schema and dataset to the table in SQL Server. And although these are finished now, we actually want to write the script. So this is an example of the expression that we would need to write for each of these line items. So it would be items applied to each, and then the name of the column that we would be matching with SQL Server. And this is the exact same for each one of these rows. It'll look like this when you first insert it, but then after you save it, go back out, come back in, it'll look like these columns here. So we can go back in, test it. Everything should test out. Manual test. Run. Everything's running. So we continue to run it daily. So you can see it's going through the steps now. And it only takes about 4 to 5 minutes for this to run. So we can see it's running here, and I run it daily. So here's an example. So every day it's somewhere around 390 records that it's pulling. And it works very nice. So this is the end result of our flow. Data being stored in SQL Server. This is the table that we created, and this is a subset of the data that was captured. And then later on I will do a video of how this works with Power BI, so I can build visualizations and based on the stock market data on a daily basis, so we can get updated stock prices. So that concludes my video. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe to my channel to get all the latest technology tips, and to visit my website at TW-Waytek.com, where you'll find even more tips and tricks. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.